Uh, First off, I want to thank Worktech. This is a fabulous event. It comes around here once a year. I'm always excited if they ask me to talk. So thank you, Philip, Isabel, the team. This is a fantastic venue. This was nothing last night, so just to let you know, they did miracles with it. And also Wilson Meany for letting us use this great venue. We didn't have a space maybe 3 weeks ago, got a space, got it ready to go. TMG, thank you very much. And Yelp, thank you for letting us do the tours today through your facility. If you didn't get this chance to see any of that, you actually can see what this space can turn into. First off, I want to start, everybody's been making these great kind of quotes and statements, and I've got one I want to see. Technion cannot answer this question because they know the answer to this, but everybody else can. Think about who said this. And I'm kind of framing this in the argument that this is a lot of what our entrepreneurs would say to us, or this is the way they think at least. So it kind of puts in context what you're going to see in the slides in the later part of this presentation. But find out who you are and do it on purpose. And just kind of leave you with that because we're going to go into a little bit more in depth. But we've talked about a lot today is that people's spaces are very much customized around them. And this is much the way we design for our clients today. That it is not often, the kit of parts is not just a singular piece of product and you just put it together, but it's actually many things that make a space. So we'll be looking at that. But before we do that, I want to kind of put in context where we were just like 3 or 4 years ago and where we are going, actually some of the spaces that we're doing right now today. Let's see, back up here. This is
just the big green one.
Big green one, okay. Okay. So I'm going to start off with a facility that Andrew might know. This is actually Building 4. This is in Redmond, Washington. This is exactly the kind of workplace that we're typically dealing with before we do the remodel. It's usually office intensive. It is very hierarchical. It actually doesn't talk about collaboration at all. It talks about being sequestered in a little room and not talking to anybody outside of that. And the components of that are slowly changing. Keep on going backwards. These are the typical components of those offices. You know, the hardwall office furniture. It really hasn't changed that much in years. So this is something that would be in the standard office, the standard cubicle, and then the standard conference room. We'd have these 3 areas and we do them over and over again. We'd have a number of offices on the perimeter and we usually float all the workstations into the middle and then put 3 or 4 conference rooms. And that would be for a floor maybe of 170 people. So those are woefully underserving the office user today. So I want to go through a little bit of process in the way we get to the way we design our offices and the programming and the thoughts that we have prior to tearing the building apart. We actually start sketching very, very much the same way we did years ago and start pulling the office apart. We look at the way circulation routes. We look at the way people collaborate. We actually want to open up the middle of the office and tear down a lot of those offices. So as you can see, when you saw the slide before, you just saw offices everywhere. What we're doing now is we're beginning to kind of pull apart the middle of it, and we want those to be rallying points or gathering points so that people can actually go there, meet, hang out, have lunch, do all the things in your workplace ritual that are more collaborative and more in one place. So, okay, I keep on going the wrong way. These are some topologies that we've developed, and I don't want to get too focused on topologies. I'll touch on them lightly because the conversation today is really about the invisible office and the idea that the office is changed dramatically. It's a cross between residential, hospitality, these familiar places that we like to hang out, we like to work in them, but we also socialize and engage in other ways. And that's very much what the office is about today. It's about the conversation and changing that conversation. I mean, technology, that's a given. You can work anywhere. Any device it comes down to, you can push it to any screen. I, in a sense, don't even want to talk about that because that is actually, we want it, we have it in our spaces, but it almost is, it's just there. It is like air. You want to push your presentation to the wall, you can. You just hook up your iPhone or you hook up your device and you go on Apple TV and you push it to a screen. So the topologies I'm going to talk about today, we have 10 of them, and they're variations of those 10. So just because we've basically defined 10, we actually have variants of those. And it's not to say that every single project has to have all 10. It's really what makes sense for that particular company. So we have shelters, individual areas, we have think tanks, town hall, workshop, anywhere, studios, library, living rooms, war rooms, and you can see how we scatter them. And we were talking a little bit about variety. The whole idea is that you need this variety. One size does not fit all. You just can't have a bunch of little small conference rooms and expect the company to actually be productive or innovative in those spaces. You need to put the right mix, and that's very customized. That is the whole Dolly Parton statement. All entrepreneurs know who they want to be, and they just do it. And they tell us, that's who we want to be. I don't care what they did over there. They say, oh yeah, I like some of those details, but I want something that works for us. So we actually try to aggregate all this information through questions and through observation, and then we put together the base program so that we can have these good underpinnings, a space plan, a program that actually supports the design that we're going to put forth. The first element, or the first space, is town hall. And town hall is quite simply a gathering place. We don't talk about a workforce anymore, we talk more about a community and fostering that community. The way you can do that is real simply. You just make the spaces feel more inviting. The hearth, the table, the kitchen table, all these elements, you'll see actually very residential details in our design to really promote the idea of kitchen or gathering space. So you see very much like the residential tile, the big table, the picnic table, the gathering table. And this particular entrepreneur loves bars. So we have a whiskey bar for his all hands area. Still, we have places to sit. It's all plug and play. You can push your projects or you push your presentation to these screens that are right across, but the idea is that if this is what they feel they need to be productive and to collaborate at the end of the day at 5 o'clock is a whiskey and a beer, then that's what we do. I mean, the idea is that you can come from your workstation and you can go down here, you can stay here, you can come here first part of the day and start working. This is actually a great project just up the street. This is Open Table's new headquarters. And Open Table, when you first went there, they just had a very small lobby, small reception area, but nothing of the business. So now you're beginning to see the brand. You're seeing a little bit of what they're about in the space. So what are they about? They're about food, they're about gathering, they're about cooking for each other. We found out that they love to do things for each other. So we made the front lobby, which is real representational of the culture, a big kitchen. Library is simply, in an open plan, you will get an overabundance of noise, and you need to be able to control that. So we need to, by protocol, create areas that are called libraries. The first slide is actually at the Redmond facility. We created just off of the main corridor, a little bit away from the cubicles, or workstations rather, these areas that where heads down work was what you were supposed to do there. You weren't supposed to go there and do noisy activities. They're filled with Kindles, you do your quiet reading there, but the idea is that you're not going to do loud, very, very disruptive work there. And this is a more literal library. This is for giant, this is not for giant, this is for, oh my gosh, U-Noodle. It's Quid, thank you. It's Quid. They changed names in the middle of the project. It's Quid. They all went to, it's funny, they all went to Oxford and they all love the Oxford Library. So the whole idea is how can we create kind of that where they had those quiet times where they could study and do the rigorous studying. They wanted that. So we actually found this great wallpaper and created this feeling. So it's much about creating that environment as we can. Not just throwing a bunch of chairs in an area and calling it a library, but making it feel like a library. This is actually the newest one we've just done. This is actually at Cisco's new facility at 500 Terry Francois. I mean, raised floor is usually like the toughest thing to work with in a project. We actually used it to our advantage. We created the 70s sunken living room. So this library is actually, you change and you go down and you have these great chairs, and It's basically surrounded by colored glass, so it feels really comfortable working there. Again, you realize when you're in there, you want to do quiet heads down work. Workshop, the idea behind workshop is that you want to have a sort of a respite from that digital day. So if you're coding all day long, you want to have the ability to do something more analog. So we try to create a space that doesn't really have technology. In the case of Microsoft and Building 4, they hadn't had a bike program. People rode bikes. We decided to make that more of a prominent feature in the space. So you can bring your bike in and work on it and hang it down there. And so people drive these very, very expensive mountain bikes and fixies. We wanted to make sure there was a place for that to take place inside the building. So when you didn't want to work on your computer, you can come down here and work. The whole point of this one is really that the workshop and that aesthetic really is, everybody likes to work in a studio. When they come to our office, they really enjoy that aesthetic. So we try to bring a little bit of that workshop through furnishings, through detailing, to kind of reiterate that. This is actually, again, over at Building 4. The garage was set aside as space for the employees to do private work or work on their own projects. So when you worked in here, you weren't necessarily working on company work. You were actually doing things, writing code or doing something that you wanted to do on your, basically they had an 80-20% rule where you can work on your own projects in the facility and not be concerned about that. Shelters are the in-between, between conference and a lounge piece just sitting in a hallway. A lot of people like to go into a conference room, but sometimes that's just too, you gotta book it. There's a lot of things entailed with that. The idea that you can just go to a very simple shelter or cabana that is immediately accessible is very appealing to a lot of people. So this is a project, this is Square. This is a cabana or a unit of conference rooms that we built right in the middle of the hallway. There's no door on it. There's glazing on one side. The noise decibels actually knock down quite a bit when you go into the space because it's all lined with felt. And they're very easy to get into, and they get used quite a bit. This one's a little bit more permeable. This is at reputation.com, and the idea is that I want to go to someplace different than my desk, but I don't want to go in the conference room. And this mimicked more the brand. The brand was about science, hard science, so we actually kind of took a little bit from a high school science lab, the aesthetic with the unistrut and the chalkboard and the tackboard material. This is at just at Meraki, Cisco. They had yurts in their old office, and this is our new version of the yurt for them. And there's various levels of privacy in them. There's actually these very open ones that are at the beginning, and then they get a little bit enclosed towards the middle piece, and then at the actual end, there's actually just one entrance, and they're all lined with acoustical felt. So just another alternative, another place to go in that kind of workplace variety that we try to create for people. Studios, a little bit about that is, again, working in the environment, your standard workplace. We want to create just a little bit of a different type of feel. And studios are very popular. And I was talking about it earlier, people like to come to our office. They love the whole idea of the gallery or the studio. We want to recreate that. Sorry, I showed this twice, but this is Samsung, and this is where industrial designers will come together and redesign a product for the US market. So we wanted to make it feel more collaborative, more studio-like. Over here at Square, we put the high table, and it's very studio feel. They're a higher height, and they're in between workstations, so you can quickly turn around, meet with a colleague and go back down, or you can just hang out and work there for a while. So it's that we're just changing where the desk is in this particular solution. And then again, we have the high tables in these cabanas in reputation.com. Individual work areas, we've all seen the big benching. We do benching. We try to make them a little bit more sensitive to the aesthetic, to the design sensibilities of the space. This is a beautiful raw concrete building built in the 20s. So we actually did cold rolled steel legs, butcher block tops, and almost that really, really old-fashioned wire glass to carry it through into the workstation. This is actually, again, at Microsoft, we took, in this particular case, these would normally be hardwall offices, and what we did is we actually took them all down and created essentially a kit of parts from 5 different manufacturers to make this workstation. Kimball, Steel, I mean, we had everybody in there, but the combination didn't make it feel like standard product. We try to stay away from that standard look. We don't want the contract furnishing, feel all the time. We need to be able to be more curatorial in the way we specify the furniture, so it feels a little bit more comfortable. This is actually an interesting office. This is a 6x8 office that we developed, so individual workstations can still be in the hard wall. In this particular case, they were designed to be you couldn't stay here for 3 months or 6 months. You were supposed to book these for weeks. I don't know, Andrew could probably speak to the fact of whether this is holding up in terms of concept, but we wanted to break the train of getting a hard wall office. We wanted people to go back to the open plan, so we made it so these were not something that you can stay at very long. Think tank, small 5x5, very, very small rooms that are almost like phone booths. Very popular. We do them out of different types of material. In this particular one, we did this all out of cold rolled steel and butcher block. They feel like little phone booths, but you can actually bring 2 or 3 people in there and have a meeting. This is at Reputation. We actually took all the doors from the project and repainted them and utilized them as the fronts for these 5x5 small little conference rooms. This is actually at Climate Corp, and this is so small. I mean, it's a very small sliver of a closet, but any one of these rooms really work, because if you just need to duck out for a second and close the door, you just need to provide that in this day and age, because people don't want to speak in the open plan. They don't want to always go out into the stairwell. You need to provide these spaces. War rooms are really the board rooms, the conference rooms. They still exist. You still have to have those large meetings. We just prefer to make them a little bit more open and not so closed off. So we do put a lot of glass, and we try to make it so every meeting, we heard this a lot, especially when we were at Facebook, everybody would like to know who's in that meeting, not that meeting that happens without you being a part of it. So we want to make sure that there's a high visibility of transparency, although I'm showing you that, and I'm showing you Mark Zuckerberg's conference room that had no windows. This was called the bunker. But what we did, so that you felt like you knew what was going on, we took a picture and we actually spun the camera all the way around, so the photograph or the wallpaper on the wall is actually of the space before they moved in. So it's this really cool black and white photo, sort of plays in the idea what was there before. This is at AOL, again, main boardroom, right in the lobby. You can see everything that goes on in that conference room. Living rooms is really more or less about the conversation, and that kind of conversation you have when you're in a couch or in your living room. Obviously, the conference room is more formal. Obviously, when there's a couch and there's comfortable seating, and if that comfortable furniture is actually more residential in kind, people have a different conversation, and it feels like something you want to use and sit down and cuddle up on. So this is actually very close to where Everett used to work in Facebook. This was the creative group, and this was their little living room. This is Cisco's new living room at 500 Terry Francois. Right across from that is actually a great coffee shop where they serve their artisanal coffees to their employees. This is at Giant Pixel, taking a little bit from 25 Lust. We've got that beautiful fireplace that sits in the middle, again, right next to the work areas. And the notion that you actually can work anywhere is very true. So we try to make all of our clients put useful furniture in their hallways, and when we're working with developers and builders, we try to make all those hallways active. So putting the right furnishing there, putting whiteboard down the hallway, putting monitors, nice furniture to sit in. You can activate those hallways and make them very useful. You can even activate staircases. In this particular case, this is Evernote. They love the idea of having a big staircase and a big landing so they can do presentations. So right behind that landing, there's actually a big monitor. So everybody can sit on the staircase and they can hang around the apron and they can have a presentation right in this main communicating staircase. So the future of workplace, I'm just going to touch on it a little bit. The furnishings, the elements in the workplace are changing all the time. We kind of take for granted, the cube and typical lounge chair. We actually are looking for new ways to have people collaborate. This is one of the pieces that we worked on. It's called the Edge. It's over there. It's basically a bunch of modulating boxes that you can put any finish on, and they create space. So where you don't have the opportunity to build walls, I think there's a need for product that actually addresses that. So if you had a chance to sit down in it, it essentially is a place that you can kind of create on the fly. And the idea is that, this kind of space is going to be actually probably more enticing to use than the desk or even a lounge piece, because sometimes you just want to lean up. You just want to hang out. You don't have to do it for a long time, but you need pieces that do that. So we've created that. So I wanted to, I'm not ending, I'm actually going to bring on a special guest. I'm bringing John Liu, who is the facilities director of Yelp, and he can talk a little bit about workplace and the approaches we had in this facility. This is actually a floor plan of where you're sitting, and you actually can see that it's a big L. And we can we'll let John explain some of the details if you didn't get a chance to go on the tour.
Hi. So this photo that Primo has up on the board right now is our 8th floor barista area. So this was actually quite new for the company. We didn't have this at our old building. So we really created a really good gathering space that housed our kitchen, a barista, a training room area, another kitchen in the back area where we have the food for everybody. But the barista was actually something we never even told the employees when they moved in. And so it was a big surprise to them, so it was kind of great. But it turned out really well, and we really wanted to keep it to a very residential theme. A lot of wood, very natural, kind of calming, I think is something what we were trying to achieve. At our old place, we had nothing like this, and Jeremy and the executives kind of wanted to bring in some woods into the theme of the office, and Studio Plus, they did a really great job, kind of integrating everything, and then kind of a plethora of a lot of couches and booths for people to sit in. So this is on the 11th floor. This is kind of two pictures. On the right side is where the training room is on the 8th floor, actually. The left side is the 11th floor, which is a stadium seating area for the engineers. So it's kind of like a mini gathering place for the guys to get together and chat. And there's a drop-down screen that's right about to the left of here, and a projector, and they can come in and do some impromptu type of meetings if they wanted to. This was really kind of a fun thing to do for the engineers. It was something I kind of did before for another project in Europe for Skype a long time ago, and I really wanted to do it again. So I told Primo this is something I kind of wanted to incorporate. So it's kind of a combination of the kitchen and a stadium seating meeting room. And this is around the corner from the barista. We had this great, beautiful wood wall. But we created this pathway down to the back side of the building. At the very end, you'll see our taps for our beer. Yelp's very known for their beer. But we created a really great area for the employees to eat. And I actually have never seen the employees come down to our previous kitchen as much as they do now here. And they kind of chill out, have meetings there, and do their lunches. So pretty straightforward, but really open. And airy and very calming. So, that's it.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, John. So in closing, this little infographic is actually just to show that work happens everywhere. I mean, it happens in circulation, it happens at the workstation, it happens in the conference room. But the idea that collaboration just is manufactured, you can't even control when that happens. All you can do is provide that opportunity for it to happen. And what we try to do is set up the facility so that it creates that opportunity for that conversation, that aha moment to happen, no matter where it is, and hopefully it can capture it. So, thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Primo.